بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. To my brothers here sitting in front of me, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you in good. And to the brothers and the sisters who may be in their homes or at work or on a train, on an airplane, walking, driving, wherever you may be, whatever country and whatever time zone you may be in. May the greetings of Al-Islam be with you all. And may Allah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim keep you firm upon the straight path until death. With that being said, many things that we can mention to you with regards to advice that we ourselves need first and foremost. Advice which is the responsibility of each and every single Muslim to each and every single Muslim. Advice that is the duty of the Muslim to the fellow Muslim. It's a two-way street. As Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bajali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrated in Sahih Bukhari and others, he says, Bay'atu Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, I went to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, and I extended my hand. I placed my hand upon his hand, and I swore by Allah. I gave my solemn oath. I gave him my word as a man, as a Muslim, as a believer, to listen, to obey, and to follow, to establish the prayer, to give the zakah, to uphold the teachings of Al-Islam, وَالنُّصْحِ لِكُلِّ Muslim. And he says, and to be honest, and to be transparent, to be upright, not to have two faces, and to give advice to each and every single Muslim. This is from the fundamentals of my bay'ah, the pledge of allegiance that I gave to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which the companions had to do. They had to give him his bay'ah. And they had to not only say that they believed, but they had to make a promise. They had to make an oath to be there in mind, body, and spirit, physically as well as spiritually. And from that which the Prophet ﷺ took upon them, from their oath and from that which they swore to uphold and to defend, was the concept of Naseeha. Is that you cannot walk past a Muslim and that Muslim asks for advice and you don't give them any advice. As the Prophet ﷺ says in the authentic narration, collected by Imam Muslim and others, the 6 basic rights of every Muslim upon the following Muslim, وَإِذَا اسْتَنْصَحَكَ فَانْصَحُ, is that when your brother asks for advice, then give him that advice. When your brother requires that you keep it real with him, tell me, give me some advice. What do you think? What's your opinion? Do you think I have a chance? You tell him how you honestly feel. And you don't withhold things from your brother. You don't withhold things from your brother. So an-nasiha in al-Islam, we all know is tremendous status. And we all know that it is an obligation upon each and every single one of us. And we also know that the ulama of Islam, they have discussed the reality of a person giving advice who's in need of advice. A person who gives something who needs it himself. And just because you give advice and teach people and explain things, it doesn't mean that you don't need it as well. And the ulama of Islam, they have also explained to beware of the tricks and the traps of the shaitan. As Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, when he struck the man down, and he was so brolic and powerful, he didn't mean to kill him, but he was very physically strong, and he hit him, and the man fell down as if he snapped his neck. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam immediately sought Allah's forgiveness. And he returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, قَالَ هَذَا مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. He says, indeed, this is from Satan's handiwork. This is from what Shaitan did and plotted. إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌ مُضِلٌّ مُبِينٌ. He is an enemy, an adversary who is mudil. He's misleading. And he's plain. It's nothing hidden. He's coming to trick you and to deceive you. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم Allah Azza wa Jalla, He tells us about the tricks and the plots of the shaitan in the Quran. He warns us, لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان ومن يتبع خطوات الشيطان فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر. Do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. And whoever follows those footsteps will fall into telling the people with evil and telling the people to do that which is wrong and against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in many, many other verses, in which Allah clearly warns us against the tricks and the traps of shaitan. So from his tricks and from the traps that he lays down for the son of Adam is that which pertains to Naseeha. Is that I can't give advice because I myself am sinful. I can't give advice because I myself need advice. I can't teach, I can't explain, I can't say anything because I'm not perfect myself. And the shaitan, he goes even further. And sometimes people, they speak as if the shaitan is on their tongue. And they say, I'm nobody's role model. I'm nothing special. I'm no sheikh. I'm no this, I'm no that. I'm just a normal person. I've studied overseas, I've benefited, I've learned, but I'm not here to speak. I'm not here to talk. I didn't expect to talk. I didn't expect to speak. This is all from the tricks of the shaitan. And the ulama of Islam, they have mentioned this many years ago, warning the people from this misunderstanding. From those ulama is Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his famous book, Talbisu Iblis, the devil's deception, which is without a question a precious book. A precious book. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, we know, who died in the 6th century before Ibn Taymiyyah, before Ibn al-Qayyim. He lived in the 6th century, and he has a chapter in that book, Talbis Iblis, on this concept of people saying and thinking that I can't enjoin the good and I can't forbid the evil. I can't give advice, I can't do anything because me, myself, I'm sinful. I have mistakes, I have errors. Who am I to speak? Who am I to say something to someone else? And he mentions that this is from the tricks of shaitan. That shaitan that Musa ﷺ said about him, إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌ مُضِلٌ مُبِينٌ. That he is an enemy who's misleading and he's plain and he's public. Allah tells us in the Quran that the plot of the shaitan is weak. إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. Shaitan's plot is weak. And some of the scholars of Islam, they found this verse to be problematic. How can shaitan's plot be weak? How can a plan of shaitan be weak? And Allah clearly tells us that many people have been misled by shaitan. He is misled. Allah, he will mislead all of the sons of Adam, he says. All of his dhurriyyah. Illa qaleelan, except for a few people. And the ulama of Islam, they say about this verse in Surah An-Nisa, that the plot of shaitan from one aspect is strong, it's formidable. But from another angle or another aspect is extremely weak. And that's if you just actually sit down and break it down and look at the reality of what shaitan says and what he calls to. So one angle, you see this color, right? And another angle in the sunlight, you see what? A total different color. So it's all about perception, how you look at it. If you look at lusts, if you look at the majority of the people, if you look at those who have the power and those who have the authority, قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِمْ لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. Surah Al-Kahf, Allah says that those, قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا, those who are influential, those who are wealthy, those who are powerful, they said that we will build a shrine and a mosque over the deceased people of the cave. In other words, when they discovered them in the cave, and they differed how many people they were, them and their dog. Some of them, they said, leave them as they are. And others, they say, no, they were righteous, they were special, they were pious. And let's build a masjid over them, which is obviously a means of shirk, if not shirk in itself. Allah tells us, قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا, those who won the debate in the argument, meaning the people of dunya, the people of politics, the people of authority, of wealth, they had the final say-so. And they decided to fall into the impermissible act, constructing and erecting a masjid over the graves of the people of the Kahf. So if you look at it from this aspect, no doubt the plot of shaitan is strong. We're the weakest, we're the fewest, we have the least resources. The people who are in charge, they have influence, they dominate and they dictate the policy of what Islam is and what Islam isn't. And the people of the sunnah, the people of knowledge, the people of ilm are always just barely getting by. So therefore, why not follow it? Why not water it down? Why not compromise? If you look at the plot of shaitan from that aspect, then it could be formidable, no question. The majority of the people, you leave this masjid, you run into 10 people, 9 out of 10 of them are going to be on what? The sunnah or other than the sunnah. Obedience or disobedience. You line up 10 Muslim children, what do you want to be when you grow up? 9 out of 10 of them will say, I want to be this, that of the dunya. And very few of them will say, I want to be religious, I want to be pious, I want to be righteous. But if you actually sit down at what shaitan says and just break it down and look how feeble the plot is and how he attacks you based off of lusts and impulse and not looking at things and their final destination, it's weak and it isn't strong at all. And from that is the deception and the trickery when it comes to people of knowledge. And those who say that I can't speak, I shouldn't talk because I myself am a sinner. I have fallen short. And Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu has narrated in the Sahihain that on the day of judgment, a man will be in the fire of hell. And it will be a very gruesome and grotesque spectacle. His intestines will be dripping from his belly. And he will be dragging them and pulling them and hauling them. And he'll be humiliated and mocked, walking round and around like an ass does around a flour mill, a donkey. Primitive, crude, no intelligence whatsoever. And the people of the fire, Allah tells us that they will speak and they will talk. Just like Allah speaks about shaitan speaking and talking in the hellfire. The sermon of Iblis in the hellfire. So these people, they would gather around this man and they would say, Ya Fulan, ma laka ya Fulan. As if they're saying, why are you here? What are you doing here? We're supposed to be here, the sinners, the evil people. You're righteous, you're pious, and you're religious. And obviously he would make an excuse. And he would explain to the people why he's in the fire of hell with them. And we all know that he would tell them, I would tell you to do the good, but I wouldn't do it myself. And I will forbid you from the evil, and I will do it myself. So this authentic hadith proves is that he who enjoins the good and forbids the evil and does not do it himself, he who preaches without practicing, kabura maqtan. Allah tells in the Quran, Allah is very angry when you say that which you don't do. Atamuruna an-nas, you command the people to do good and you forget yourselves. We know this. So therefore, because I'm a sinner, I'm from the sons of Adam, I'm not that righteous, I'm not that pious, I can't speak and I can't give you any advice, I can't talk. From one aspect, that's true. But from another aspect, that is from the deception of Iblis. He has tricked you. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he spoke on this issue. Years later, in his precious book, اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم مخالفة أصحاب الجحيم. One of his best books, Shaykh Hamid Faqih rahimahullah ta'ala said, من أقوى قنابله, from the most powerful books that Ibn Taymiyyah wrote was اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم, in which he warns the Muslims from imitating the non-Muslims. He warns them against that. And in that book he mentions that the one who sees evil and he does not tell the people to refrain from it, the one who does not encourage the people to do good with the excuse that he is a sinner, or he is not doing it, or he is not practicing it, or I can't give you advice because I need advice myself. He says that the shaitan has tricked him and he has now received 2 sins from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, double sin. Look at the plot of shaitan. What's worse, 2 sins or 1 sin? At first, he's getting a sin by not doing that which he's supposed to be doing. He's getting a sin. He's in error. But then he has the opportunity to say something. He has the opportunity to preach. He has the opportunity to help out his brother or his sister in Islam, and he doesn't. The shaitan tricks him, and now he's in a double compromised position with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it goes to show you how tricky shaitan can be. So therefore, if it was an issue of, I myself am a sinner, I myself lack this, I myself am not righteous, I'm still studying, then none of us would ever speak. No one would ever give a khutbah. As Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala said about the khatib, he gets on the minbar and he says, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqullah, fear Allah, O people. And as he's saying that, he himself is a what? He's a sinner. He may have made a sin before he came to the khutbah. He may have become angry at someone, or got into an argument or a car accident or lost his temper in traffic or said something to his wife that he shouldn't have said or was harsh to one of his children, that doesn't stop him from doing his job and giving the mau'idha, the reminder to the believers. So it is not about being perfect. And Allah knows that I'm far from perfect. But obviously we didn't travel these thousands of miles to sit in a room and to pray and cry over our sins. So therefore, with that being said, there are many things that I can give you advice with, things that I need myself. And the most important pieces of advice is what I just mentioned, is not to look at the majority and not to look at the people of wealth and the people of status and the people of dunya and then look down upon yourselves. And not to doubt and to think maybe we are wrong. Maybe we're not upon the truth. Maybe they're right. Maybe the majority of the Muslims, they're upon that which is correct, and we have the misunderstanding and the misinterpretation of the deen. And obviously, you're all saying, no, we don't say this, we don't think this. That's not true. But it can happen. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam from looking at these people. He forbade the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam from having doubts by the people who are the majority and by the people who are in charge, the people who are influential, such as Quraysh. And they came with many doubts and they said many things about him. So when you go to the different Muslim countries and you travel to Canada, to UK, to America, so on and so forth, wherever you go, it's always the same. The Muslims who are practicing, trying to be righteous, trying to be religious, trying to follow the Sunnah, one way or another, they're going to be the minority. One level or another. As Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala is quoted that he said over 1,000 years ago, "Taraffaqu ya ahl sunnah, fa'innakum aqallu nas." He says, "Oh people of the Sunnah, be gentle, because you are the minority." And Hasan al-Basri, he lived, as I said, 1400 years ago, from the major tabi'in. "Taraffaqu ya ahl sunnah, fa'innakum aqallu nas." He says, you are the minority. And as it states in the famous Arab proverb, إِنَّ الْبُغَاثَ بِأَرْضِنَا لِيَسْتَنْسِرُوا. إِنَّ الْبُغَاثَ بِأَرْضِنَا لِيَسْتَنْسِرُوا. It says, in our land, the sparrow is an eagle. In our land, the finch is an eagle. In other words, this small bird, similar to that, right? In our land, it has to act and behave like a what? An eagle. A golden eagle. A huge, strong, powerful, formidable bird, as we saw in the airplane. Nothing about that eagle looks friendly. Its size, its speed, its talons, its beak, nothing about it is friendly. It's a bird of prey. And there's so few eagles in our land that the finch has to what? Fly and soar and hunt like an eagle. This is a famous Arab cliche. So when you sit down and you think about Muslims in general, trying to practice that are not secular and nominal, trying to be upon the Sunnah, trying to seek knowledge, trying to be righteous, trying to be pious, trying to avoid the fitna, trying to get married, trying not to make zina, etc., etc., etc. The circle becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And there lies no doubt the human psychology is to look at this and to take this into consideration. And from time to time, you may have a doubt. Maybe it's me. Maybe I am extreme. Maybe this is outdated. Maybe this isn't good for 2019. Maybe we should fit in with the rest of the people. You travel through the airport. This thought is going to cross your mind. Maybe we shouldn't travel. Maybe it's too much. Maybe the pressure and the annoyance and the harm in the airport is time to stop. It can happen. And then you have to immediately check yourself. Immediately check yourself. And you cannot be lowered to the standard of those who do not have certainty. As Allah Azza wa Jalla says, be patient. وَلَا يَسْتَخِفَنَّكَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُقِنُونَ. Allah says, do not allow those who lack certainty to make you have doubt. So that's my first piece of advice. Is whenever you think about this or this thought comes to your mind, or if it doesn't come to your mind, always make sure that you check your intentions. What am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? And is everyone going to listen? Is everyone going to obey? Is the majority a proof and an evidence for that which is right? Or is it based off of what Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us? Or what the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam tells us? So do not lack certainty. Do not lack certainty, as many of the pious predecessors would say. بِقِلَّةِ السَّالِكِينَ. Don't become upset or afraid or scared or lose certainty because of only a few people that are following the correct path. And do not be deceived and duped. بِكَثْرَةِ الْهَالِكِينَ, by the vast majority that are far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on one level or another. Those who are not Muslim, that's one level of remoteness. And there are levels among that. We have the Jews, we have the Christians, we have the mushrikun, and the list goes on. And then we have those who claim Islam, and those who attribute themselves to Islam. And there are levels of remoteness. There are groups and schisms and parties. Those who claim the Sunnah, and those who claim to follow the Salaf al-Salih, and those who say Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah and Ahlul Hadith. There are levels among them as well. And those who are on the pure orthodox way, all of them are not righteous and pious. All of them are not devoted to seeking knowledge. All of them are not dedicated to da'wah. There are levels among levels, what? Among levels. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مِنْ نَشَاءُ. Allah says, we raise people in levels how we wish, how we will. And above every learned person is someone who's more learned. نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah says that we raise and we extol people in levels. But there's always someone who's above. So with that being said, that's my first piece of advice, is to have certainty and to maintain your certainty and to renew your certainty. And do not be overtaken by the majority. And do not be overtaken by that which shines and glitters. Do not be overtaken by you being the minority, because that is the case wherever you go, on one level or another. On one level or another. You go to a country in which the people are upon Tawheed, alhamdulillah, that's the standard aqidah, the aqidah of the government, etc. The religious people, the pious people, the righteous people, the knowledgeable people, they're always the minority. And it's a reason why. And the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us, he says, عُرِضَتْ عَلَيَّ الْأُمَمِ. He says that one day, I was shown all of the nations, all of them. فَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَمَعَهُ الرَّهْطِ. He says, one prophet, those of my brothers who came before me, I saw with him 3 to 9 people, 10 people, 12 people, 7 people. And he's a Nabi. وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَمَعَهُ الرَّجُلُ وَرَجُلَانِ. Another prophet, he had 2 or 3 people with him. A trifle, a small amount of people. وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ أَحَدٌ. And I saw one prophet, and I encountered one prophet who had no one following him. No one following him. Was the prophet wrong? Was his tongue crooked? Did he have kinks in his tongue? Was his message wrong? Was his message outdated? Was he too harsh? Was he an extremist? Was he a fundamentalist? Of course not. But it doesn't mean, just because no one was following him, that his message was wrong or he delivered it in a bad way. So this hadith is paramount. And this is one of the greatest harms of social media today. Social media that we've explained has its good and has its benefit, no question about that. And social media which has its vice and its scourge, no question about that. And from the problems of social media is that it makes majority and it makes numbers a proof that someone's right and someone's wrong. And that is totally un-Islamic. Totally un-Islamic. In which we use numbers of people to determine what's correct or what's incorrect. And if we take that rationale, we wouldn't be Muslims. If we took that rationale, we wouldn't be practicing the Sunnah and learning and studying and teaching, if it's just about the majority of the people. So how many followers you have? How many supporters you have? How many people you have with you when you tweet, when you post, when you upload? That proves that you're saying that which is correct. It does not prove that. And there are many people who change their teaching style. They'll water it down. They'll shave it down. They'll trim it up. And they'll compromise to get more followers. So don't do that. Be upon that which is correct as long as you're sure that that which is correct. Second piece of advice is that there are many roads that lead to Jannah. And there are many paths that lead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seeking knowledge is not the only path. It's not the only path. It is not the only way to paradise. It is not the only profession that a Muslim can have. And it is the bitter reality. It's something only a few people want to actually do. Only a few people want to actually be devoted and dedicated to seeking the deen and knowledge of the deen. But with that being said, seeking knowledge is one of the closest, shortest, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and most virtuous paths to Jannah. Sufyan ibn Uyayna and others, they say, Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahumullah ta'ala, they have said, مَا عُبِدَ اللَّهُ بِمِثْلِ الْفِقْهِ مَا عُبِدَ اللَّهُ بِمِثْلِ الْفِقْهِ. They said there isn't a way that you can worship Allah that's better and more thorough than understanding of the deen. One of the best ways of obeying and worshiping Allah is being a faqih of the religion. And we know that this statement is extracted and deduced from the Prophet ﷺ's statement, وَمَنْ سَلَكَ طَرِيقًا يَسْلُكُ أَوْ يَلْتَمِسُ أَوْ يَطْلُبُ فِيهِ عِلْمًا سَلَكَ اللَّهُ لَهُ أَوْ سَلَكَ اللَّهُ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. Whoever treads a path in which he is seeking knowledge, Allah will place him on the path to paradise. So there's nothing wrong with being a mechanical engineer. Nothing wrong with that. It's a virtue. It's nothing wrong with being a doctor. It's nothing wrong with being a businessman. It's fine. Alhamdulillah. And the Muslims need these things. My car breaks down, I go to the mechanic and not to an Islamic scholar. If I want to build a city or a bridge, I'm going to go to the mechanical engineer. I have a problem with my belly or my head or my foot, I'm going to go to the physician. There's nothing wrong with these things. I need some money. I'm going to call Abu Sa'id, I need some money. Abdul Qawi, I need this. I have a problem with my electronics. Nafis, what's wrong with my iPad? I'm not going to ask him a question about hadith or fatwa. There's nothing wrong with having worldly knowledge. There's nothing wrong with that, and we do not promote that it's bad. However, we do believe, and we are biased, and we do have a prejudice, is that the best thing to be, and the highest level, and the summit of it all, is knowledge of the deen. There's no question about that. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said to his family members, and he said to his relatives, "Inna ma'ashir al-anbiya la nurath, ma taraknahu sadaqah." He says, as far as us, the prophets and the messengers, we don't leave money behind. You don't inherit from me through monetary means. Any wealth that we have is charity for Allah's cause. That means is that the student of knowledge, the seeker of knowledge, and the scholar of Islam could be closer to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from one aspect than some of his actual blood. Because they are his true heirs. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ. They're the heirs because they inherit his true legacy, and that is the legacy of knowledge. And we all know the virtues of ilm in the Quran and in the Sunnah and in the statements of the Salaf al-Salih and what the ulama said about knowledge. What's important is one of the best things about ilm today, one of the things which shows the point that I'm trying to give you is to seek knowledge and to study knowledge of the deen, is that you have so many people making dua for you. If you are a doctor and you, by Allah's permission, you cure the people, walhamdulillah, and everyone respects a doctor, and you make good money, and it's, alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful thing. A Muslim comes into your office, they're sick, they're aching, they're ailing, please help me out. What's wrong with this? Why is my arm like that? You give them some medicine, you look at it, you give them the x-ray, etc. Alhamdulillah. Perhaps they'll say to you, Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah protect you, may Allah keep you firm, may Allah keep you safe. Thank you so much, doctor. They think that they're ruined. They think they have a terminal disease or a terminal illness. You tell them, no, it's just a rash. You're stressed out, you're not drinking enough water, so on and so forth. They feel very happy and they make dua for you. But how many doctors can say that each and every single client and patient is Muslim? How many doctors can say that each and every single client and patient is righteous and pious? How many doctors can say that each and every single client is connected to Allah and makes dua all of the time? So if you're a doctor, at best, a few Muslims will pray for you and will make dua for you. And that's a beautiful thing. But if you're a person of knowledge, you teach one class, you give one khutbah, you answer one question, you make one dawah trip, in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 week, 10 days, how many Muslims are going to pray for you? In the UK, how many brothers came up to us, Abu Sa'id, hugging, crying, kissing us, making dua for us? May Allah bless you. May Allah reward you. May Allah allow your trip to be safe. May Allah. As we speak on a live stream, how many people are making dua for us? As we speak. And we ask Allah to accept that dua. So I'm trying to prove a point here. Is that there are many virtues and there are many excellent things to do and to busy yourself with, of the deen and of the dunya. And there are other things that you can do in Islam that lead to Jannah. But what I'm trying to make a point here is the best of them, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is knowledge of the religion. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ says, "Men yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din." When Allah wants good for the servant, He gives them understanding of the religion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made Talut the king of His people. إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَثَ لَكُمْ طَالُوتَ مَلِكًا. Allah has made Talut your king. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he says about this ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, that Talut was not an aristocrat. He wasn't an aristocrat. He wasn't a noble. He didn't come from a high bloodline. He didn't have the rich blood that the other Israelites had, in which they came from Bayt al-Nubuwah. They came from a household of prophecy and of kingship. They were rulers. They were aristocrats, highborn, a class system. That wasn't how Talut was. And the first thing that the people said, the people of the dunya once more, how can he be the leader? How can he be the king? How can he have the mulk over us? We have more right to it. We have the noble blood. وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعْةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. He isn't wealthy. He isn't rich. He isn't like how we are. What did he say? قَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ. What did their prophet say to them? He said that what? That Talut is your king. Why and how is he your king? Is that Allah Azza wa Jalla gave him two things. And what are those two things? Allah said, what about him? He gave them what? Talut was what? He said he was what? Knowledgeable, and he was what? بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَن يَشَاءُ. That Allah Azza wa Jalla, first and foremost, Allah chose him. That's first and foremost. He chose him. So you can't ask how. There's no rationalizing what Allah does in our human minds. That's first and foremost. Secondly is that Allah gave him physical strength and He gave him knowledge of the deen. So that's the pinnacle. So just think about how many people pray for the learned person. How many people make dua for a 5-minute halaqah. How many lives will you change when you do this talk about drug abuse and about getting married and about going to Medina? You write a letter of recommendation. You help someone. How many people want to pray for you? How much sadaqah jariyah do you get from one class, one khutbah, one lecture, one question that you answer? Just stop and think about that. The virtue of knowledge above all other things. And that is why it states in some hadiths that the one who teaches the people good, every single living creature makes dua for him. The fish in the sea, it says, حَتَّى النَّمْلَةُ فِي جُحْرِهَا. And the ants in their burrows. لَيَسْتَغْفِرُوا. They all seek forgiveness for مُعَلِّمُ النَّاسِ الْخَيْرِ. He who teaches the people good. So with that being said, point number 1 is to be certain. Advice number 2 is to seek knowledge of the deen and to try to take as much of the knowledge of the deen as you possibly can. Try to take as much knowledge of the religion as you possibly can, to soak it up and to be greedy. The more knowledge that you have, the better it is for yourself and for others. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And never ever suffice yourselves with just a bit. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he asked the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, what is the best deed? What's the best thing to do? What is the closest, fastest way to Jannah? And we all know what the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam told him and what advice he gave to him. And the end of the narration, Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said, حَدَّثَنِي بِهِنَّ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَلَوْ اسْتَزَدْتُهُ لَزَادَنِي. He says, the Messenger of Allah told me these things, and if I asked him for more, he would have given me more. If I asked him for more, he would have given me more. So be greedy for knowledge. And the more knowledge that you have, the better your da'wah will be. And the better your organizations will be. And the more of the correct aqeedah you can spread in these lands. The more of the correct, proper understanding of Islam you can spread in these lands, the more knowledge that you have, the more wisdom that you have, and the more fiqh that you acquire. So these are just 2 pieces of advice. And as I said before, there are many, many other pieces of advice that we all need, starting with myself and with each and every one of you. I don't want to take too much time because it wasn't supposed to be a long lecture. It was only supposed to be a brief reminder, if that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Within these 2 pieces, inshallah ta'ala, is more than enough. لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ. For those who are alive, those who are awake, and those who are mentally and spiritually and physically present. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Tafadhal. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So we'll start the Q&A session now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. And for the sisters, could you write them down and pass them so we can pass them on to
Fadal Nafis.
If you have somebody that's like disabled and you're taking care of them, whether it be a woman or a male, like a family member that's disabled, mentally disabled, physically disabled, etc. No, I'm sorry, mentally disabled, if you will, like autism or something. Let's say the brother is 15 to 20 years old, he's growing a beard, but he wants to shave it off or something. What should you do as his caretaker? Vice versa for a woman, like hijab, himar, like they always take it off.
Clear.
Or actually it might be a different scenario where some of them, they can't keep it on, they take it off.
Crystal clear. Crystal clear. First question says, if you are a caretaker or a guardian for someone who is suffering from mental illness, whether they are considered to be clinically mentally ill, insane, someone has lost their mind, or they have part of their mind, part of the mental sanity is there and other parts aren't, etc., or a physical disability, etc. What is your duty and your job with regards to the practice of the Sharia, such as growing the beard versus shaving it, such as wearing the khimar versus not wearing the khimar, etc., etc. First and foremost, the ulama of Islam, to keep things brief, they have discussed when a person is declared majnoon. When is a person actually Islamically, clinically considered to be crazy, considered to be mentally insane, in which their aql isn't there. And if their aql, if their mind is not there, if they are insane, then obviously we know that there are many Islamic rulings that no longer apply to them. There are many Islamic rulings, not all, and pay attention, I never said all. I said many. Many Islamic rulings that don't apply to the one who is majnoon. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is quoted in the famous hadith, all right? In which he says, رُفِعَ الْقَلَمُ عَنْ ثَلَاثَةٍ. The pen is lifted, meaning the taklif, responsibility and liability for one's deeds, is lifted from 3 people. And from those people, وَعَنِ الْمَعْتُوِ حَتَّى يُفِيقْ. The hadith says, عَنِ الْمَعْتُوِ. The one whose mind isn't there, who's insane, until he comes back to sanity. So with that being said, there are many Islamic rulings that do not apply to the one who's considered to be ma'tu or majnoon. But as I just mentioned to you, who is considered to be majnoon? Just because you have a mental disorder or an illness doesn't mean that you're insane, Islamically, let alone in the secular standards as well. Someone can have an illness and still be there, and they're still held responsible. So there are levels of mental illness, there are levels of insanity, and there are levels of junoon in al-Islam. So if someone has autism, if someone has this issue or that issue, if someone takes these pills, if someone has to see this specialist and that specialist, so on and so forth, it doesn't mean that they're not responsible for obeying Allah and for following the outward rulings of the Sharia. Unless a person is majnoon, in which they do not realize that which they do. But even at that time, someone who's insane at that level, oftentimes they understand many things. Many things they still do understand. So with that being said, for argument's sake, the person's junoon, the person's mental sickness is slight. Or let's say half and half. It's not 100%. And they're a little stubborn, or they're forgetful, or certain things that they can't retain, their memory, their short-term memory is very bad. You have to remind them. You have to remind them. And it's haram for you not to remind them and not to tell them to do what's correct, and they have the ability to understand that. As far as the physical things, you are not allowed to allow them to perform fasad. If he says, buy me some razors, buy me some clippers, I want to shave my beard, don't do that. And you tell him with kindness, you tell him, you remind him, you can't shave your beard. Even if you make a joke with him, listen, put down the razors, you know you can't do that. And he's half insane, but he knows a little bit. No, I want to look nice, I want to look smooth, I want to go out on a date tonight, I want to go outside, I want to have a shaven face. You tell him, hey man, you can't shave your beard. You know you can't shave your beard. There are many people who deal with people who have mental illness like this. You see them talking, whether it's their family members, even in the hospital. They'll talk with them and they'll make jokes with them. And the person who's mentally ill or half insane, they get it. And they'll make a joke and they say, no, I want to go out. I want to go outside, I want to get a girl tonight. I can't have this long beard. And you tell them, you'll find their relative or the doctor says, no, you can't do that. You're ugly anyway, grow your beard. And the point I'm trying to make is that the one who's mentally insane, he himself knows what? That the beard is haram, but he may forget. The beard to shave it is haram, but he may forget, or he may want to make fasad. You understand this? The person may want to make what? Fasad. And if a person says that I want to look nice and handsome and go out to a club and get a date because I don't have hair on my face, that proves that his mind is not 100% what? Gone. You understand the point? He's not 100% Majnoon. If he knows the concept of style and appearance and being handsome, and the modern standards is to look boyish. And now with a woolly what? Beard. Everyone understand the point? That's the point I'm trying to get to. And oftentimes when you're a caretaker or a guardian of someone who's artistic or something, or has this issue or that issue, oftentimes that's the case. And many parents or caretakers and guardians, they make an excuse. And they say, she doesn't have to cover because she's a little, disturbed. My son doesn't have to make salah because he's not mentally all there. That's not true. He has enough aql to say, bring me a sundae. Make sure you put a cherry on top. I want crushed walnuts on it. I want chocolate syrup on it. His mind is not absolutely missing the point I'm trying to get to. Everyone understand this? I challenge you in Allah Adam. Most people, as I said, parents, brothers, uncles, who have people that are mentally ill in their families, most cases is going to be what? Like this. They're not absolutely mad 100%. And if they were that mad and that insane, then they wouldn't be at home. They would be in a special place, wearing special things, eating special food. Everyone understand this? So with that being said, it is your duty to remind them, because they may forget. They may have a short-term memory problem, or they may not get the concept 100%. But if you have to joke with them and to get the message across, then that is what you must do. Everyone understand this? You are not allowed them to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's no way they can remember, or they don't get the point at all, that's a different story. But as long as you're the caretaker, then you're responsible for their shoes, their clothes, their underwear, and their dress code. And when you take them to the barbershop, you tell them, don't shave his beard. Or if you yourself cut your little brother's hair, you don't shave his beard. And if he has enough mind power to say, I want to look nice and I want to cut it off, you tell him, you cannot do that. If he can understand that it's haram, alhamdulillah, and if he can't, you say, no, leave this. And if he disobeys you when you're not there, when you're not around, that's not your sin. That's not your problem. But it is your duty to enforce the Sharia on him. And many people, they misunderstand this. They say, La ikraha fi din. There's no coercion in the religion. And that's a true statement. That's in the Quran. Allah tells us, La ikraha fi din. There's no coercion in the religion. That's a true statement. But your understanding of that verse and your application of that verse isn't true. That's what's not true. What does that verse mean? And most importantly, when was that ayah sent down? And what do the ulama of tafsir say about that verse? La ikraha fi din. Read tafsir Tabari. Read the tafsir of this verse and you'll see what the Salaf said about this ayah. La ikraha fi din. And many of them said that this verse was at a certain time period. And that's no longer that time period. Putting faith in someone's heart, of course, la ikraha fi din. Enforcing the rules and the people of the truth dominating and controlling, that is not included in la ikraha fi din. So many people, they misunderstand that. And they tell my son, or they tell, oh, I can't tell my son not to have a girlfriend because la ikraha fi din. That's wrong. You can't convince your son not to have a girlfriend, true. You can't convince him. He has to believe himself. But if he's in your household, your job is to make ikrah. You cannot come in my house with this woman if she is not your wife. And if I catch you bringing a girl in my house, you'll be punished. You cannot smoke drugs in my house. You cannot watch this. You cannot listen to that in my house. If you live outside of my house, then there's la ikrah fi din, no doubt. There's no coercion in the religion. But in my deen, there's ikrah fi din, in my house. And that is the physical ikrah, in which you're just enforcing. Just like the police officer, he stops you and he says, your brake light is out. Or you made the wrong turn, or you didn't stop at a stoplight. In your mind, you say, who needs a brake light? I'm the best driver on the road. I don't need this. I don't need to stop at the stop sign. Or as Qala Sahibun, our friend, said in Canada, he said, this stop sign doesn't have my respect. It's a small stop sign. It's not on a main road. He says, this stop sign, what? It doesn't deserve my respect. The police officer is not going to ask you that. The police officer's job is to do what? is to write you a ticket because you do not obey the rules. It is not his job to convince you of the rules. It is his job to do what? Enforce the rules. So would you tell the police officer, La ikraha fi din? There's no coercion. Of course you can't say that. Because in this issue, there is ikrah. And that is, you're going to respect the laws. So many Muslims, they misunderstand the Quran. They misunderstand it. They have a twisted, warped understanding of the religion. They don't eat organically. They don't eat organically. There's all types of dyes and preservatives and pesticides in their food. Their fahm of Quran and Sunnah is not pure anymore. And they feel that they don't have to enforce the rules on their children, their husbands, their wives, those who are under their guardianship and their care. They say, La ikraha fi din. That's wrong. That's incorrect. I cannot convince you, but it's my job to enforce the rules. As long as you're my daughter, you wear hijab. If you run away, if you leave the home, if you're grown, I can't force you to wear hijab anymore. And there's La ikraha fi din. But in my household, under my guardianship, there is what? Ikrah fi din. Everyone understand this? So therefore, that is what you must do with someone who's suffering from those problems to the best of your ability. Wallahu alam. Fadal ya akhi. Assalamu alaikum.
The Muslims are actually trying to seek knowledge and everything like that, which is amazing. Do you think we should be, more Muslims should be not obliged, but we should be more on social media? I know it's a double-edged sword, but to spread more knowledge, to talk more, whether it's writing videos, whatever it is. Do you think Muslims should be more active on social media, or should we completely avoid that double-edged sword and just like, that's not about? Because honestly, I think there's way more benefit, but then we can talk about the negatives as well. So what do you think?
Question is regarding social media. When it comes to seeking knowledge and spreading knowledge and teaching and giving da'wah, calling to the sunnah, should we be more active on social media or not? There's a double-edged sword, there's a good, there's bad, there's a benefit, etc. If I said that we shouldn't be more active on social media, we should totally avoid social media, if we should protect ourselves before trying to get a benefit, I'll be a total hypocrite. I'll be a total hypocrite. May Allah protect me and forgive me for my hypocrisy of preaching things that I don't necessarily practice. And I sincerely mean that. Things that I don't do myself. As his brother said, he talk about zuhd, but you got him a rollie. And as FYI, when you make a dawah trip, a part of the dawah trip is your entourage and your friends roasting you. That's a part of it. That's a part of traveling. And if your brother can't roast you and take a stab at you and make a joke, then he's not a true what? He's not a true brother, true companion. Everyone understand this? So they refute me all the time. They say, Mufti, you talk about zuhd, but how many iPads do you have? And this, and your shoes and that, and mashallah, every time we see you, it's a new thing that you're wearing in the video. So there's always double standard. We say certain things, but doing it is what? Oftentimes not equal. So I would be a total hypocrite if I said we shouldn't, because I'm on what? Social media. As we speak, we're on social media. And we have thousands and thousands of videos and interactions on several different platforms on what? Social media. So I don't think that's correct. But I will say this. Everyone should not be seriously involved in social media. Not everyone. As far as you're on Facebook or Instagram, email, WhatsApp, with your family, your friends, a few close associates, you give da'wah to a few small people, alhamdulillah. There's nothing wrong with that. But every Tom, Dick, and Harry, Bakr and Zayd and Amr should not be heavily involved with da'wah on social media. No. A select few of those who have knowledge, wisdom, experience, and skill. They should be heavily involved in social media. Classes, lectures, khutbahs, ebooks, audiobooks, refutations, debates, and things like this. Forums, yes, no question. But not what? Not everyone. And that's the trick of the shaitan. Because it's permissible for him to do it like this, now it's what? Permissible for me to go head first into debating with somebody online. He posts all his khutbahs, so now I'm going to make my khutbahs. It's not the same. He's answering a question, it's not the same as what? This is a difference. So it depends on what level you're on. But there is no doubt, anyone who says we should avoid social media, you shouldn't do videos, this person is not going to be, he's already been left behind. He's left behind. He's watching the clouds of dust and smoke from the caravan. He's left behind. And we all know what happens to the Muslims when they become left behind. Why is the modern world the way it is today in Malaysia and in other Muslim countries or third world countries or second, whatever the case is? Why are the Muslims so far behind? Why in Medina, when you go to buy an air conditioner and it's so hot outside, they tell you buy this one, it's from Japan, and don't get the Korean one. Buy this fan, it's from Germany. Don't buy the Chinese one. Don't buy this one. But there's never ever a Saudi air conditioning company, or from Qatar, or Kuwait, or Syria, or Lebanon, or any Muslim or Arab country. Why is it? Where are the Muslim cars at? The Arab cars at? There's Yabani, there's Sini, there's Almani, there's Kada, there's Kada, there's Kada. Watch. What's the best movement that you want to have is what? And your watch, it says what? Swiss. Why is this? Everything that we do of the worldly life, we're always buying and getting and purchasing from someone else. And we're always in love with this country and that country because the Muslims technologically have been what? Left what? Behind. They're way ahead. And that's because when there were certain pieces of technology that were brought forth, many Muslims were narrow-minded. It's haram, don't do it. It's bid'ah, it's sihr. No, we can't do this. It's haram to get involved in that. We should avoid it. We should stay away from it. And the non-Muslims, what did they do? They took it and they worked on it and they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars and creating it and involving it and mastering it, and then now they dominate it. Anyone who wants to buy a sports car has to go to this country. Anyone who wants a quality watch has to buy it from this nation. Anyone who wants a good tablet and electronics, it comes from this country. Muslims have become lost and they've become stuck in the past. And if you read history, and one of the greatest lessons that you learn from the Crusades, those wars that were fought between Christendom and between the lands of Islam, between Saladin and Lionheart and this one and that one, the Crusades, is that those European crusaders, those warrior monks, they went to the lands of Jerusalem and they didn't just fight, they didn't just kill, they didn't just plunder and rape and murder, and they didn't just physically conquer. But when they were finally expelled and the Crusades were over and whatever happened, they left with a wealth of secrets and a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of technology. And they went back to France and to Germany, and they went back to their European countries, and they took their stolen secrets from the Muslims and the Arabs and the other nationalities and ethnicities of the Muslims, and they worked on it. They developed it. They spent time and money and effort and energy while the Muslims were still fighting and scrambling over who's going to run and who's going to rule and who's going to dominate and what madhab we're going to follow and what aqidah we're going to practice after we've expelled them from our lands. And that is why we have the modern world what? Today. But if you look at the first people to make this, those who traveled, those who invented this, those who created this, oftentimes it's a Muslim. Where would the modern world be today if it wasn't for the Muslims? The number 0 comes from where? 0. Do you know where 0 comes from? Sifr. Do you know what a cipher is? Do you know how the world was changed when they invented the number 0? Who invented that number? Coffee. Who were the people who invented coffee and found the use of coffee? Weren't the Jews, wasn't Christians, weren't Buddhists, weren't Hindus. It was nothing more than Muslims. There was a time in which coffee was illegal for Christians to drink. You could not drink coffee. Coffee was a Mohammedan drink, a Muslim drink. It was prohibited in Christendom. Where would the modern world be today without that cup of Joe? Abdul Qawi, where would your hospital be without coffee? Where would your surgeons be without coffee? Not tea, what? Coffee. Are you understanding this? But the point I'm trying to make is that the Muslims, when something comes, they have to jump on it in order to have a decent fighting chance to stay up. And if we take this passive, oh no, we should stay away from it and everything, then we want to be what? Totally left behind. So that's my opinion on social media, but that isn't for what? Every single Tom, Dick, and Harry. Wallahu a'lam.
Is it permissible to receive money from work from non-Muslims? From non-Muslim holidays? If not, what can we do with the money?
Question is about receiving money from non-Muslims we work for during their holidays. If it is impermissible, what is permissible, what should we do? What can we do with the money? The ulama of Islam, such as Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah in that book that I mentioned, and others, they discuss the issue of holidays and the paramount importance of holidays for any religion and for any culture. A culture and a religion and a people and a race, a holiday is a staple part of it. Staple part. You understand this? We were in the airport. What did we see when we were going to check in New York City? When we were about to get on the train, it was the what? The New Year's, the year of the pig. Why are they celebrating it? Why is there a picture of a pig wearing gold jewelry on the window and the desk at the counter to check in? Because it's a major holiday for them. And a big part of their culture, their religion, their language, and their way of life is their holiday. Everyone understand this? So the ulama of Islam, they've spoken on the rulings of holidays in detail. In detail. There's no leaf or stone unturned when it comes to the rulings of holidays. So therefore, there's a difference between taking a gift, receiving a gift, and between giving them a gift. And there are many athar from the Sahaba, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, that Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah and others mention about some of the companions accepting gifts from non-Muslims during their festive holidays, certain times. And that's not the same as you doing what? Giving them a gift and celebrating and commemorating them. So there's a difference between the two. If you work for someone and they give you a bonus because of the holiday or because of the time of the year, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully there's nothing wrong with accepting it, inshallah. And if you have doubt about it and you don't feel comfortable with it, they say, Merry Christmas, here's an extra check, right? They're clearly telling you that this money is because of what? Christmas. If you feel doubtful and you don't feel that it's right or it's a double standard, are we supposed to stay away from their holidays? I can't give them a gift, but I can receive a gift. Then at least take the money and give it in sadaqah. At least take the money and give it to a poor, needy Muslim, and do not allow the wealth to be lost and squandered. Some people even say, Allahu Alam, I'm not saying this, but some researchers have said, when it comes to the modern financial and economic world, the system of interest, you should not allow the interest to go to waste. Some people have made this statement. If you have a savings account and money is given to you and it piles up and it's amassed over the years, do not allow the wealth to be squandered. You don't eat from it. You don't give it in sadaqah, but take the money and make a takhallus. Get rid of it in a useful and practical way. The point that I'm trying to make is that the Muslims today are in dire need of money. And they're in dire need of what? Funding, as we mentioned. Dawah needs funding. And without money, I would not be sitting here right now answering your question. We can play the game, we can act pious, we can say this, but that's a bitter reality. The plane ticket costs what? Money. For me to leave my family, my children, that requires what? Money. For me to pack my bags and to make my tea, that requires what? Money. There's no doubt about this. So Muslims have to be responsible with wealth, and we should not squander wealth. Everyone understand this? So hopefully, if you take the money, and if you feel doubtful about it, then do something with the money. And if you don't feel doubtful about it, and if you feel it's permissible, then take the money for yourself, for your family, or for any other righteous cause. Wallahu a'lam.
I don't know, maybe, let's say certain holidays, like back in the States, or I don't know if they do it here, but like Christmas, they actually call in people to work for a certain event or something. Maybe that might be...
With regards to working overtime, covering for non-Muslims who want to go celebrate and party, that's a good thing, alhamdulillah. It allows no doubt that you're at a disadvantage and the situation is compromised. So let me get something straight now. Brother Ashik, you work for me. First and foremost, you say you can't shave your face. You don't shake a woman's hand. Your pants are short. The 2 to 3 times out of the day, aside from your lunch break, you want 5-10 minutes to pray. You don't come to the office parties. You don't drink with us. You don't smoke with us. You don't talk gossip with us. You don't sit down and look at the magazines and the videos we have of women. You think you're better than us. We're all sinners. We're all going to hell. God has chosen you. You're my employee. What makes you so special? Why are you so better than us that you don't have to shake this person's hand A new employee comes in. Can you do the interview? She's a young lady. She has her folder. Could you please give her an interview? The first thing that they teach you in high school, when I was in school, about going on an interview is doing what? A good, firm handshake. And once you make eye contact, you don't squeeze the person's hand once you intimidate them, nor do you give a lazy, slacked handshake, but a good, balanced handshake, and you make eye contact with the person. So you're telling me that you're my employee, and you can't do that for the company? I didn't ask you to lust over her. I didn't ask you to give her a hug and a kiss and a feel and grope her. You can't shake her hand. You can't look at her in her eyes. That's against your religion. You need extra time to pray. You can't come to the holiday. That's a problem in the real world, in the corporate world. Nothing that from our lifestyle you can do as a Muslim. What makes you so special? What gives you that advantage over these other workers that will gladly shake the woman's hand and come to the office party and drink with us and have fun with us and clearly declare we're all brothers and friends? Is this not a problem at work, Abu Saeed? So to make your position better and to lessen this burden, you have to be a really good what? You got to be a great employee. You have to be smart. You have to be talented. You have to be a hard worker. And you have to have the ability to sacrifice for the whole company. Anyone who wants to go out for New Year's, he wants to drink, he wants to go to this party, go to that party, we can go to Brother Ashik. He's going to cover for us. He'll be there. He'll work the extra hours. He'll work all of the holidays because he's a Muslim. That's a virtue of a Muslim in the workplace. That's a virtue. Because no one wants to work during the holiday, except for a few non-Muslims, a few that may detest those holidays. I don't want to drink. I don't want to be on the roads. People are drunk drivers. But most people, they want to spend time with their family or their friends or during a holiday. So if we have a Muslim who has a really big beard and he looks scary and he's a fundamentalist, he's a Wahhabi, he's this and he's that. He can be whatever he wants to be. But he is an excellent worker. He never steals, he never lies, he never cheats, he comes early, he leaves late, he's cordial, he's polite, he's friendly. He's a perfect employee. You can do whatever you want. You need to pray 5 times, 10 times. Tafadhal. You need to take off for Eid? Go ahead. You want to take off for Jumu'ah or you don't want to take off for Jumu'ah? That's the issue. With regards to taking off for Jumu'ah, some of the ulama said it's disliked to do that. Some of the ulama hold the view that you should work on Friday and that you should not take off on Friday because it's a means of imitating the non-Muslims. Some of the ulama say that. That's a faida what? On the side. That's a shubha what? Al-Amin says a shubha on the what? On the side. Some of the ulama hold the view that you should not take off on Friday. And that's a means of imitating the Jews and the Christians who take off during their Sabbath on Sunday. That's just a faida on the what? On the side. Al-Muhim, whatever day you need to take off, whatever you need to wear, whatever you can't eat or drink, you're fasting, you can do whatever you want because you're the best employee in the office. And from that is working during New Year's or Christmas, and we give you a bonus and we pay you extra money. There's nothing wrong with that. But everyone understand that the deeper psychology that I'm trying to get into? There's some Muslims who bring bad dates and a poor scale. The dates are of poor quality and the scales of what? Poor quality. And they demand to take off for Eid. They can't drink this, I can't do that. That's not good. That's not dawah. You should be the best employee. And you should be proud to be a Muslim. The reason why I'm such a good employee is because of my religion. And if it wasn't my religion, maybe I would steal from you. Maybe I would cheat. Maybe I wouldn't work as hard. But my religion prohibits me from doing that. And my religion also commands me to be the best at whatever I do. Inna Allah kataba al-ihsana ala kulli shay. Islam, Allah has prescribed ihsan over all things. One of the most iconic figures in pop media of the 20th and 21st century is Muhammad Ali. Without a question. He was far more than just a boxer. Far more than just a boxer. And his pinnacle, or the pinnacle of his career, the highest point that he reached in his career is when he demolished George Foreman. When he knocked out George Foreman in the 8th round. The first thing that Muhammad Ali said when they interviewed him, and he was holding that bottle of spring water, he started praising Allah. And he started speaking about the honorable what? Elijah Muhammad. And so on and so on and so on and so forth when he was in the Nation of Islam or whatever the case may be. The first thing he started doing, and all of the reporters and the interviewers, they kept trying to get him away from talking about that. How'd you beat him? How'd you knock him out? How'd you come up with the rope of dope? How did you devise the plan? And he kept saying, Allah, 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 Allah. He used his victory, which was a stunning victory, and his mastermind plan of knocking him out like that to prove, or as a fruit of his what? His faith. And he blamed his victory on his faith. Regardless, we're not getting into the Nation of Islam. We're just talking about the concept, belief in Allah. Everyone understand this? He was telling the people, I'm such a good boxer because what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm a Muslim. How many people do that today? How many people talk about their worldly success because of Islam and because of religion? Most of us do the opposite, in which we want to hide it. And we don't want to talk about religion. Look what just happened with Habib and what? Connor. What happened? What's the first thing he said? What's the first thing he used? And the media, they didn't what? They didn't want to hear that. They just want to talk about how'd you get him to tap out? How'd you do that? That's all they want to talk about. So I'm trying to make a point, guys. And that is that if you have a skill and if you have a talent, you should use it as a means of what? Dawah. And if you're rewarded for that and you get a bonus for that, then inshallah, that's from the worldly benefits, a small piece of what waits for you what in the what? In the hereafter. That's the point that I'm trying to get to. So we cannot just go to work and work for non-Muslims and not involve our deen. So you should be the best at whatever you do, you should be the best as a Muslim, as a professional. Wallahu alam.
So inshallah, a question I think from the sister's side. What is the context of the hadith where a man from Yemen came to Rasulullah for jihad, and then Rasulullah asked him to go back to his parents instead of going for jihad? Can that hadith be used to justify parents permitting their child to do a sunnah act? Example, a niqab.
Questions from one of the sisters. With regards to what is the context of the hadith in which a man from Yemen came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked to go out and fight jihad, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him, was his parents or were his parents alive? And if they are, then go, فَفِيهِمَا فَجَاهِدْ. Go fight with them, meaning serve them. Does this hadith prove that parents can prevent their children from making sunnah acts such as the niqab and things like this? Jazakallahu khairan is a very good question and a very important question. And the answer is yes and no. Yes and no. If there's a recommended act in which you don't have to do, and it comes in front of you serving your parents or pleasing your parents in something which isn't haram, then no doubt you should serve your parents. We know this from the story of Jurayj, the great worshiper, in which his mother called out to him while he was making prayer. And he refused to answer his mother. It's Sahih Bukhari. And she made dua against him. She asked Allah to punish him and do not allow him to die until he sees the faces of those prostitute women. And we all know the scandal that was made against Jurayj because of his mother's dua. The prayer that he was making was not mandatory prayer. And he should have left the prayer and answered his mother. So therefore, if there is a recommended act, recommended, it's not obligatory, and your mother needs your service, do that first. If you can't do both, one compromises the other at the expense of the other, serve your what? Your parents. That's the yes part of the answer. The no part of the answer is that this does not apply all around the board, in which your parents are totally secular, non-religious, totally cultural. Don't grow a beard. Don't wear thobe. Don't wear niqab. Don't go seek knowledge. Don't cut your pants. Don't sit in the masjid. Don't go and make salah. Don't read the Quran. Don't. And they're based off of fear. They're afraid that you want to get discriminated against. You can't find a job because you have a beard. You can't get married because you've covered up your beauty and your charm. Many women, they say this in the United States. They tell their daughters, you're not going to get married wearing those ugly clothes. Wearing a gloves and niqab, you can't find a good husband. They have to see some of the what? Some of the product. They have to see some of the product. The fish bites the hook because it sees the what? The worm. You have to offer something. Huh? Muslims talk like this. They tell their daughters, don't go out of the house wearing that potato sack. Don't dress like that. You don't have to be totally naked, have total tabarruj, but you have to show some of your charm for the brother to like you. Akhi, the beard is not really obligatory. Just trim it up a little bit and shape it up a little bit and, seek knowledge, but only go to the masjid once. come right home after Fajr, etc., etc., etc. If that's the rationale of your parents, do not obey them and do not listen to them. And that is because nothing will remain from your deen. And every single act, they'll say that it's just a sunnah. And there could be an act which is mandatory according to all four schools of thought. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, everyone says it's mandatory, and they'll say it's just a what? Sunnah. So if that's your parents, and that's how they talk and think, then do not listen to them, and do not obey them even in that which is not obligatory. Listen carefully to my words. Listen carefully. Don't compromise the sunnah act for them. It's because you give them an inch, they will take a meter. They will take a yard, a foot, if you compromise your religion. Do I have to wear thobe? No. Thobe goes off. Do I have to cover my head? No. My head is uncovered. Do I have to go to the masjid? It's 15 minutes away, it's 10 minutes away, it's 20 minutes away. No, I don't have to. And then you turn around, a day, a week, a month, a year. What's left of your deen, Abdul Qawi? What's left? And then they're still not pleased. And now they want to encroach on the obligatory territory. And the next thing you know, you stop making your prayer in public. And the next thing you know, you start shaking this one's hand, and you start listening to this, and you start doing that, just to please your what? Parents. So be careful. If your parents are righteous and pious, even if they're not that knowledgeable, they're good people, that's one thing. But if your parents are afraid of the kuffar, and they wish to eat from the scraps of the kuffar's table, the food that they throw on the floor for the Muslims, don't listen to them. And try your best to explain to them, to convince them. Try your best to tell them that this makes me feel happy when I dress like this. I don't have to wear this, but I feel happy when I wear it. I feel more righteous when I cover my face. I feel closer to Allah when I cover my face. Everyone understand this? And don't always get into the argument of you do or you don't have to. And even though many ulama, if not most of them, say that a woman does not have to cover her face, that the niqab is not obligatory, it doesn't mean that all of the ulama say that. It doesn't mean that. Many ulama hold the view that a woman must cover everything. And they have a strong argument to say that. So the point is, brothers and sisters, it depends on who your parents are. And it depends on what the act is. Many Muslims today, they say things are sunnah. And when you read the traditional books of fiqh, it's obligatory. And most people cannot make taqleed properly. You read the Hanafi fiqh books, Abu Hanifa, Muhammad ibn Hassan, Abu Yusuf, Zufar, this one, that one, all of them said it's mandatory. 500, 700 years later, the Hanafis say it's just sunnah. But that's not what the Imam said. The people call themselves Shafi'is. You read Imam Shafi'i's speech, it's like night and day. Imam Malik said, don't do this. But you go to Algeria, or you go to Mali, or you go to other Maliki countries, and the Malikis are practicing something totally different than what Imam Malik was doing, or the early disciples of Imam Malik. So the average person, they can't properly make what? Taqleed. They don't know how to blind follow. Is it even permissible to blind follow? But if it is, they don't even know what? They can't even do it properly. Everyone understand this? They can't do it properly. And the Hanafi, Shafi'i madhab is mixed with a bunch of what? Pesticides, food dyes, coloring. It's not organic anymore. If it's even correct to follow Abu Hanifa in this view. Everyone understand the point I'm trying to get to? So some of the ulama of Islam, they say, this last thing I want to say about the answer, is that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he told his righteous, pious son Abdullah to divorce his wife. An authentic hadith. Divorce her. She's no good. Divorce her. Let her go. And we all know what happened, or what Ibn Umar did. So some of the ulama of Islam, they say that if you have a righteous father, a righteous, pious, knowledgeable father who tells you to divorce your wife, some of the ulama say that is what you should do. And some of them, they say, if your father is nothing like Umar, then what? You don't have to listen to him. Everyone understand the point I'm trying to get to? What's the chances of someone who's knowledgeable, righteous, pious, going to tell you to divorce someone without a clear, solid reason? What's the chances of that? And what are the chances of someone who's of the dunya? Someone who doesn't have a beard. Someone who barely makes 5 prayers. Someone who barely comes to the masjid. Someone who thinks that you shouldn't look like a Muslim. Someone telling you to divorce your wife for a clear, solid reason. Everyone understand the point? So oftentimes parents, they want all of their rights, but they're not willing to be righteous and pious themselves. And the same applies to leadership. The Prophet says, obey the leader, listen to the leader, follow the leader. And the Prophet also tells the leader to do what? Establish the deen, serve the people, protect the country, establish the religion. Is that not the sunnah as well? A husband, he quotes the hadith of the Prophet saying, obey your husband, listen to your husband. If your husband had a wound with pus coming out of it, if I told anyone to make sujood, it will be to the husband. And the Prophet also tells the husband to do what? Fear Allah concerning his wife, provide for his wife, take care of his wife, serve his wife. Aisha was asked in Sahih Bukhari, what did the Prophet do when he was with you? When he was in his household? He said he was what? Served his family. كَانَ فِي مِهْنَةِ أَهْلِهِ كَانَ فِي خِدْمَةِ أَهْلِهِ. He served his wife. They asked, what's that? Sewing a thobe, milking a goat. How many men do this? His wife asked him to wash a dish, to sweep a floor, to bring some food home, to take out the trash, to take out the recycling. And it's a what? World War III. A huge argument. And then this person says, the Prophet said, Sahih Bukhari, obey me, listen to me. Most of us live one-sided lives. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And included in that are parents. When it comes to their rights and what they want to do and their warped understanding of Islam, it's nothing but Bukhari and Muslim. When it comes to them not eating from riba, praying, wearing hijab, doing what they're supposed to do, having an Islamic household, it is in Sahih Bukhari and it's not what? Sahih Muslim. That's very unfortunate. Wallahu a'lam. Fadal, Nafis.
How does one utilize the last hour of Friday? How to be conscious of Allah, secrets of His.
Utilizing the last hour of Friday, being conscious of Allah, seekers of hifd. Utilize the last hour of Friday in the way in which you feel is getting you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to pray, if you make dua, if you read Quran, if you're teaching a class, if you take your children out to the lake and you throw and skip rocks, you have a picnic with your wife, whatever you feel is an act of piety and righteousness, that's getting you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many doors that lead to Jannah. There are certain people who are naturally inclined towards certain things. This man by nature is a warrior. He's a warrior. He always was tough and strong from day one. He had a strong physical body from day one. He was never frail. He was never injured. He was strong. He came out of his mother's womb and started running in a walker from day one. He should stick to and focus on that which pertains to physical strength and the deen, protecting the Muslims, serving the Muslims, propagating the religion. This brother, my son, he was always good with money. From a little young age, he had his abacus. He had his little colored abacus, counting, keeping track of things. He would sell waters outside of the masjid on Friday. He was a natural born what? Businessman, hustler. He loves to study mathematics. He loves to go to school. He's naturally a money man. He's good at making business decisions. And my other son is horrible. My son, who's a warrior, who's an athlete, he couldn't keep $10 for 5 minutes. The money burns a hole in his pocket. And I have a third son who was skinny, who was frail, who had bad eyes from day one, who was always in the hospital. And he never went outside and played. He never bought this, he never this. He was stuck to books. He would always pick up the nursery books, the kiddie books. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every time I turn around, this son, this daughter has their nose in a book. They're reading and they're studying. They're naturally articulate. They get straight A's. And his other brothers are jealous of him. You're a daddy's favorite. You get everything because you're such a good student. He's naturally a student. Everyone understand this? So people have natural what? Inclinations. They have natural inclinations. And the same applies to al-Islam. There's some people who are inclined to knowledge. There are others who are inclined to sadaqah. There are others who are inclined to security. There are others who are inclined to speaking. There are others who are inclined to politics. So you have to do in Islam, anytime, in the last hour of Jumu'ah, that which is best for you. One person may say, I want to read the Quran. Another person says, I'll pray. Another person says, I want to make dua. Another person says, I want to teach a class. That's my ibadah. As Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala said, there are certain people, futi alahum babu kada. This door is open up for them. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ فُتِحَ لَهُ بَابُ كَذَا. There are those who have this door open up for them. He says, وَفُتِحَ لِي بَابُ الْعِلْمِ وَرَضِيتُ بِمَا فَتَحَ اللَّهُ لِي. He says, as far as me, the door of knowledge was opened up. And I am pleased with what Allah has opened up for me. That's what Imam Malik said. I'm pleased with my natural inclination. And oftentimes people, they get out of sync when they fall out of their natural inclination. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشدهم في الله عمر وأصدقهم حياء عثمان. Al-Hadith. He says, the most knowledgeable or the most merciful of my nation to my nation is Abu Bakr. And the harshest from among them when it comes to Allah's rules, without a question, is Umar. The most shy, the most bashful is Uthman. To the end of the hadith, he spoke about Ali radiallahu anhu, he spoke about Zayd and his knowledge of inheritance. He spoke about Mu'adh ibn Jabal, his knowledge of the halal and the haram. وَأَقْرَأُهُمْ Ubay. He says, the ablest reciter from among my companions is what? It was Ubay ibn Ka'b. So this hadith, the ulama have explained, the ulama of Islam, they say it shows that people have natural inclinations. And they're naturally good at certain things, and they should what? Stick to those things. And it doesn't mean that you can't do other things. But oftentimes we are jack of all trades and a master of what? Of none. Wallahu alam. Fadal ya akhi. The last question?
Previous to the parents, but maybe you can answer that as well. So the parents are like good Muslims, they're good people, that's alhamdulillah, they're good. But they're more not inclined, they're aware of their culture. And in this day and age, it's very, normal to marry someone else in a different culture, that kind of stuff. So the parents are like, yeah, it's good with Islam and we're good with all that, but the culture does not permit us. We like to stay closed in and everything. What's that for, man? Do I just not go for that?
With regards to marrying outside of your culture. Marrying outside of your culture. My parents say we want to stay close, we want to stay local, so on and so forth. What's the fatwa on that? It's a very long discussion. Where we come from, New York City, there's a huge problem. Huge problem. Huge problem. Not a small problem, but a huge problem. And it always starts in the college. Because the college is a huge, gigantic, cultural kettle. Not even a pot, it's an iron cast kettle over top of a fire. There's 20, 30, 40, 50 different nationalities and ethnicities, let alone skin tones and this and that. So there is a sister who comes from Palestine, and her skin is very, very fair. The cheeks on her face are extremely red. Very, very fair. Like the color white. Not like a Caucasian, like white, like snow. And then we have another brother who comes from Mozambique. Huh, he comes from Mozambique, right? And his skin is a very, very rich hue. Extremely dark. Dark, pure blood. Pure, not like the people say about us, the synthetic Africans, the fake Africans, the quote unquote African Americans, black Americans. Many brothers who come from West Africa or South Africa, there lies no doubt. They call us what? They say you guys are fake. Look at your skin. You're mixed with this tribe, that tribe, this Indian person, this white slave master. You guys aren't real black people. We were at the bowling alley. Abu Amin, right? We were bowling. Remember Abdul Qawi? He said, you guys may be black. He says, but I'm from the motherland. He's Zulu. He said his lineage is pure. It's a reality. Racism and prejudice is all around the board. It's not just a black and white thing. It's not just a black and white thing. Trust me. There are many people from West Africa, for the most racist and prejudiced people you will find. And they'll come to America, they'll come to the middle of the hood, right? And they'll look down on you and say, I am African, you're such and such. Am I making this up, Saeed? In the middle of the ghetto. I'm not making this up. It's reality. So the point is, her skin is white, his skin is black. They speak different languages, have different cultures, different values, ups and downs, etc. But they go to school together. So one day she bumps into him at the water fountain. Right? She drops her book. Oh, subhanAllah. He picks it up. Shukran. Right? Then the next thing you know, at the vending machine, his dollar bill was too wrinkled. And she says, here, I have $1. Oh, shukran. He gets a soda, right? Then the third time in the biology class, right? She has a project she needs help with, and the brother, what? He comes her up and she gets an A on the test. So she falls in love with the brother. He's handsome, he's strong, he's this, he's that. MashaAllah, he's a good dresser. I love the brother. And he falls in love what? With a sister from Palestine. So they want to get married. They don't want to make zina. They don't want to have boyfriend and girlfriend. They like each other. They love each other. They want to get married. So she goes home. She tells her father. She says, Abby, I want to get married. And he says, I told you get married after you finish school. She says, I know, but it's a really nice brother I want to marry. He's pious. He has a heart of gold. He makes all his salahs on time. He's a beautiful Muslim, Abby. I really want to get married. Make an exception to the rule. He says, no. So she comes back to him. She talks to the mother. She gets intercession from this aunt, and eventually the father says, all right, so who's the guy? I'll make an exception, no problem. His name is Abdullah. He's such and such age. This is GPA. Oh, mashallah, good. When can we meet him? So Abdullah comes over the house. And all of a sudden, what? He realizes Abdullah's from Mozambique. He's not Palestinian, he's not this, he's not that. And his skin is not like watered down fake black people's skin. His skin is what? Rich, African. And that's the face that the father makes. If the father has some good in his heart, he'll try to fight it. He'll try to fight it. Assalamu alaikum. He'll give him a handshake. If he has some good, because he's still a Muslim. But only Allah knows how his skin is cringing and how the hair on the back of his neck is up straight. My daughter is thinking about marrying an African. She's going to shame me, shame my tribe, shame my family, shame my lineage. The child is going to be brown. He's going to have curly hair. Is he going to have this? He's going to have this type of lips. That's a problem. Let alone language, let alone values, let alone. But our brother Abdullah and sister Fatima, they're in love with each other. And they want to get married. And they want to do it the lawful way. Am I making this up? It happens all of the time. Or these people, they're both Arabs, but they come from different countries or different tribes. This one's Fulani and this one's not Fulani. This one's Indonesian and this one is Dominican. She's from Bangladesh or from Pakistan and he's what? Black American. Am I making this up? Abu Saeed, how many situations we deal like this? So this is a big problem in America. And oftentimes, the parents, as I said to you, they're stuck in the past. Islamically and worldly. As far as the Islamic fatwa, is it permissible for interracial marriage? Is it permissible to marry into a different tribe or a different clan or different language? All right? You find many of the ulama who say that one of the conditions of marriage is al-kafa'a, it's compatibility. And many of those ulama, they'll say that from compatibility is nasab, is lineage, and race. That's from compatibility. Tayyib? Do all of the ulama say that? No. Is that the strongest opinion? No, it's not. القول الراجح الصحيح أنما المعتبر في الكفاءة الدين والخلق لا غير. الدين والخلق لا غير. هذا القول الراجح الصحيح. The strongest view is that the only two conditions of compatibility is good character and strong religion, nothing more. What you look like, what type of job you have, what type of lineage you come from is not important. That's the correct view. But you will find ulama who say compatibility is a must, and from that compatibility is race. You'll find this. هذا موجود في كتب الفقه بكثرة. It's not an issue. Listen to me, be patient. But who made that statement? What time did he make that statement? Were the Muslims living in non-Muslim countries when that statement was made? Was there World War I? Was there such thing as the Ottoman Empire? Were the Muslims migrating to Canada and to the United States and to the United Kingdom and Australia and Scotland and Ireland? Were the Muslims living in the secular way in which they live today? Did noble people mix with peasant people? Do we find the interracial, multicultural lifestyle that we have today 500, 700, or 1,000 years ago? So for argument's sake, no doubt, those in Egypt should marry those who are Egyptian, for argument's sake. And this Arab tribe should marry someone who comes from that Arab tribe, for argument's sake. But that was 700 years ago, 800 years ago, in which every single aspect of life was different. And there was no melting and mixing pot like we see today. So for argument's sake, that's the weak view. But for argument's sake, that statement is outdated. And that's because they were basing that statement off of the condition of life during those times. How you guys are going to communicate? How you going to talk? How are you going to raise children? How are you going to work? How are you going to look when you walk down the street? So on and so on and so forth. Is that the same now in New York City? Is that the same now in which your professor has a different color? This one has a different color. This one has a different language. There's students from Japan, from Korea, from all around the world studying in one place. Is the racial, cultural, political, economic status the same as it was what? In 5th century Egypt. Are we understand this? Is there slavery? Or do we have slaves? What's the root of having a slave in the United States? When was slavery abolished in the United States? This fatwa, this madhab was given and said in a time in which people had what? Slaves. So everything is different from now. So Islamically, that view, if it was strong, that view was what? It's outdated. And that's because that view was not based off of an authentic hadith. That view was not based off of clear-cut dalil, which is timeless and universal. The authentic hadith is never outdated. The authentic hadith is never what? It's never outdated. This weak hadith, which is supported by this cultural norm, and this cultural practice, and this political atmosphere, that is set for what? A time and a period. You with me or not? As far as worldly, then I agree with you. Sister Fatima should marry Brother Abdullah if all the Palestinians in America lived in one place. And all the people from Mozambique and other countries lived in what? One place. In which we don't mix, we don't get along. You have your language, we have our language, you have your culture, we have our culture. No one is interacting and intermingling with each other. Then maybe it's best for you not to marry someone from Africa, marry someone from Palestine. And not just from Palestine, from your Ramallah or Beit Laham or Gaza or whatever city you are from Palestine, because people's culture varies from city to city. Mumkin, perhaps we would say that. But Sister Fatima goes to school with Brother Abdullah and they study biology together. Don't you think that the modern world that has given you so much, your house, your car, your money, your savings, the ability for your children to go and get an education, to own businesses, those things came from what? They came from the modern world. And from the principles of the modern world is lack of what? Prejudice, racism, and colorism. So you pick and you choose from the deen, and you pick and you choose from the dunya. That is the reason why the Muslims are in the situation that they're in what? Today. And the father of the Palestinian girl, he will argue and he will swear, Wallahi, I'm not racist. La, Bilal radiallahu anhu. Kulluna abid, we're all slaves of Allah. La fadli Arabi or Ajid, there's no virtue of that. He'll swear up and down. And only Allah knows what's in his heart of hatred of everything about Abdullah. From the color of his skin, to the way he talks, to his family, to the list goes on. And he cannot bear the thought of his daughter being with this African guy. That's the bottom line. This person cannot bear the thought of my son marrying someone who's Arab. She has white skin, she's sick, she's dying. She'll stand in the sun and she'll melt. Why is she so white skinned? What will our children look like? And he tells his son Abdullah, I'm not racist. I have no problem with Arabs. I have no problem with Palestinians. And only Allah knows what's in the father's heart of Abdullah, of hatred for these people. So if we're going to follow something, let it be either the deen, which has its correct understanding. And if we're not going to follow the deen, then at least let us follow the what? The modern dunya, which is in constant progression. And this is why these Western countries and these first world countries are so advanced, because they do not discriminate. And they take the best of the best from every nation. We don't care what you look like. What's your religion? If you can help the United States, your passport is now blue. In other countries, they don't do it. They don't have that policy. You're a servant. You're a slave. You can work for 20 years, go back to your country. This is not an accident. World War II, we talk about the hydrogen bomb, the atomic bomb. Why some people were kicked out and extricated from their homes in Europe because they were Jews and they found a lush pasture of living where? In the United States. It's not an accident why they won that war. So the Muslims, unfortunately, we're not following the deen in its proper understanding. We're following something which is weak, which is outdated, and we're not even following the modern world. We accept the benefits of the civil rights movement. We all do. We all walk down the street. We all want to own things and have things. But my daughter Fatima and brother Abdullah, impossible to get married. Because, qala Imam Fulan. in this Shafi'i madhab and the Hanafi madhab, in which he said that statement, which is based off of a weak hadith 1,000 years ago, in a specific time, a specific atmosphere, and specific reasons. Understand the point I'm trying to get to? So therefore, if a person is righteous, if they're religious, if they have good character, if they're a good spouse for you and a good mate for you, then you should marry them. Whether they're like you, have your same skin color, same race, or whether there's someone else. And if your parents will not agree and will not accept, then try your best to convince them. Try your best to give them advice. Try your best to, inshallah, try to get someone to talk to them. Try your best. And another very important piece of advice is do not rush in removing your father from being your wali. Don't rush. Many sisters, they do this. And oftentimes, not all the times, but oftentimes the father isn't racist. He's not prejudiced. But brother Abdullah is a bum. There's no political way of putting it. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't work. He has no money. He has nothing. I want Sister Fatima to marry someone who can at least do what? Take care of her. You don't have to give her a diamond ring, but at least have food. And there are many sisters that get married, 2 months later, a week later, they come back to the masjid. I have no food in my house. My husband is beating me up. My husband left me. My husband made me pregnant and he divorced me. It happens. So many sisters, they become blinded by their love. But we're not talking about that. Brother Abdullah does have a job. Brother Abdullah is the best in his class. Brother Abdullah is a good, strong Muslim. His family is Muslim. Now you're being prejudiced against him. Everyone understand this? So there's a balance. Do not rush in removing your father. Do not rush in saying your father's a racist, because oftentimes your father is not racist. Oftentimes he's not. Oftentimes he is. But oftentimes what? He's not. So what's important is try your best to convince them. And if at worst come to worst, your father says no, or your mother says no, and you know that it's a good husband or a good wife for you, put your trust in Allah, perform the marriage, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your protector. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah, it should be the one in whom the believers place their reliance. Wallahu alam. Jazakum Allah khairan. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.